In this video I'm going to introduce you to the basics of the Virtual Data Center service, show you what can be provisioned through the graphic user interface and also what can be achieved through the API. On my screen you can see I've started off by creating a new Virtual Data Center network. This network will be used to egress out to the internet and also allow services from the internet to access it. So first of all, creating the network, and then secondly acquiring a public IP address for it. This public IP address will be used for NATing of application flows from the internet to it. With a new network control created, it's then time to create a virtual machine. So you choose a zone that you want the virtual machine. You then go on to choose the operating system template to be installed with it. You can specify the amount of CPU and RAM you want installed on the machine. And then you can also choose the network. So here we're selecting the network that I just created. We give that a name and go on to deploy that. Depending on the OS that you're deploying will dictate how long it takes for the virtual machine to boot up. When it has booted up, you'll receive a pop-up window which will give you the root password of that box. Quickly make a note of that. And then we'll be able to click on the VM and open up a console window which will give us access to that virtual machine. So log in as root and use the credentials we've just written down. When we've consoled onto the box, we can then change the password for the virtual machine. Now with those basics in place, we're able to configure the network so that we can access it from the internet. First thing to do is set up an egress firewall rule which dictates what traffic is allowed to come from the VM out to the internet. So here I'm just enabling ICMP ping requests to go through. With that in place, I can then configure some firewall rules and NAT rules for traffic coming in from the internet. So click through on the address and we can click firewall and specify the source address for packets to come from. So here I've just used whatismyip.com, specifying port 22, which is SSH, and adding that as an ingress firewall rule. Again, we can add other rules here, be they RDP or quickly add in HTTP as well. Now we go back and enable port forwarding. Here I'm going to specify port 22 on the outside maps to port 22 on the inside and specify which virtual machine to NAT the traffic to. So we've now got firewall rules, ingress, egress and port forwarding in place. Now we should be able to SSH to that box. Entering in the new password that we defined through the console. Okay, so an alternative to using the GUI is to use the API. So here on my screen you'll see an example of a Python-based script which calls the API web service to provision a virtual machine. So you can see it's offering you all of the template sizes, it's offering you the locations of the zones, it's offering you the operating systems and networks. Then finally you just need to give it a host name, and then you can sit back and let it be deployed. It's just one way of highlighting that everything you can do through the GUI can also be achieved through calls to the API, which is as extensive as they are on the GUI.